Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Miami Dolphins fan live stream for Tuesday, where we will talk about the results from the Monday night football games and the pain that awaits Dolphins fans on Thursday night. So, on Monday night, on Monday night, the Buccaneers won 20-19 over the Houston Texans thanks to a clutch in the final seconds of the game. With 6 seconds to go in the fourth quarter, White in for what would prove to be the game winning touchdown. The Texans had a 90.2% chance, a 90.2% chance to win the game with a minute 32 to go in the fourth when Baker Mayfield threw an incomplete pass to Emegba Egbuka. And then the Buccaneers just went down the field and got the touchdown they needed. And the Raiders convincingly beat the Raiders 20-9 in a game where Geno Smith looked absolutely atrocious. So the Chargers are now in first place in the AFC West. Sole first place. And I would assume the Raiders might be in third place because of the margins of defeat compared to the Broncos losing on Sunday. So how's everybody doing on this fine afternoon? There have been a couple of more injuries since Monday night. Khalil Mack is going to have imaging on his elbow. Khalil Mack will undergo imaging tests, and this team will see where that takes us, to quote Jim Harbaugh. And apparently, Rams coach Sean McVay tore his plantar fascia while coaching the Rams to victory over the Titans last Sunday. That is a you usually don't see coaches get injured. And the Buccaneers, Kalijah Kancey tore his pec and will miss the rest of the season. That is a loss for the Buccaneers defense. He is one of their starting defensive tackles. And the Bengals signed Sean Clifford and Mike White to the practice squad since Joe Burrow will be out for the 3 months. And right now, Jake Browning will be the starter for the Bengals at quarterback. And Brett Ripien was elevated off the practice squad to the active roster. So what do you guys think about let's talk about some of these backup quarterbacks that we're going to be seeing. It is looking like that Jaden Daniels is going to be iffy. Jaden Daniels is going to be iffy for his upcoming game against apparently Jaden Daniels suffered a left knee injury and had sprained the knee day to day. So I would assume, yes, Marcus Mariota might be starting in place of Daniels against the Raiders. And you also have Jake Browning going to be starting Bengals games for the next 3 months. Tyrod Taylor might be starting at least a game for the Jets. You have Mac Jones at the helm. Mac Jones at the helm in San Francisco. You have who else got injured? I know there was one other guy who got injured. Why am I trouble remembering? Because I know Carson Wentz is going to be starting a game against Jake Browning. So I believe Bengals. But Bengals are going to be playing the Vikings. Oh yeah, that's right. It's the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are going to be without J.J. McCarthy for a few weeks. And they're going to be having to start Carson Wentz. Yeah, a whole lot of injuries, and it's only week. Hello, Austin. Yeah, I just want one playoff win in my life. I think right now the Dolphins fans are in favor of execution of 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 this current team. We get embarrassed by the Colts. We failed to beat the Patriots in a game where the Patriots were practically begging us to come back and take the win. And now the Dolphins have to play on Thursday night at Buffalo. Colin says, I think Jaden Daniels will not play next Sunday since it's only the Raiders. Yeah, the Raiders not looking so great. This is Pete Carroll and Geno Smith we're talking about. It's looking more like the Seahawks might have made the better decision moving on from Geno Smith. So in this week's power rankings, ESPN has the Dolphins at 28. So it adds 2 positions from last week's power rankings. So apparently in this week's rankings, ESPN is doing the biggest quarterback takeaway for each team. And the biggest quarterback takeaway from week 2 is Tua Tagovailoa can succeed only with a sound run game. Tagovailoa was bad in week 1 and markedly improved in week 2. But the one constant in both games was Miami's lack of a rushing attack. The Dolphins have averaged 69.5 rushing yards per game this season, the 4th fewest in the NFL. Considering Tagovailoa is not a threat to run, defenses can key in on the Dolphins' passing game and drop 7 or more defenders into coverage. The Patriots did that on 97% of his dropbacks. If Miami can, give me a sec. If Miami's run game can get going, its offense will be less predictable, which won't force Tagovailoa to create outside of structure. And the only teams ranked worse than us are the Giants, Browns, Panthers, and Saints, which sounds about right. That's funny because I believe we play 3 out of those 4 teams. And those are the best chances the Dolphins have to win games this year. Working Man says, next Dolphins general manager. It'd probably be some. I don't know if I trust Ross to actually pick a competent GM. Who's even available? What GMs are out there who would be a 100% guaranteed improvement over Chris Greer? Patel Ron says, who's the worst team in the league? Browns or Dolphins? Well, I mean, the Browns are pretty awful. You also have to keep in mind, right now, Browns, Giants, Panthers, and Saints are all easily in contention for worst team in the league. Um, the Dolphins are also in that mix. The Dolphins are also in that mix, but it's still a little early. It's probably see. I completely lost my train of thought. I said it's a little early to determine who truly is the worst team in the league. There's plenty of 0-2 teams right now. A couple of them might get their first win this upcoming week. Austin asks, what happens with Mike McDaniel? Is he a bad coach or is Tua just bad? Well, what I think happened is it's a combination of Chris Greer being completely stubborn and idiotic and refusing to properly invest in an offensive line for all these seasons. And it forces Mike McDaniel to try and scheme an offense tailored to Tua's strengths and weaknesses as a quarterback while having to deal with an offensive line that apparently still cannot help us get a good rushing game going, which means Tua has to constantly be throwing the ball, which means opposing defenses can have 7 or more guys always in coverage, and Tua has a tendency to be unable to go off script whenever his first read isn't open, and it leads to disaster. Collins says it's both Tua and McDaniel's fault, but that's just a surface level problem. Real Cinema says Tua was always mid. McDaniel was never a good coach. The same flaws he had year one are still there. Mike designed a good system for 2 years, but now it's figured out and he didn't adjust. Real Cinema says, don't forget what McDaniel said. It's a good day because we're another day closer to death. In this case, death is getting 100 dropped on us by the Bills. I would not be completely surprised if the Bills managed to do to us what we did to the Broncos a couple years ago. Drop a 70 steamer on us. Collins says Weaver is probably going to be the interim coach since the staff likes him and so does the front office personnel. Well, I mean, I'm curious how much of the Dolphins' horrendous defensive struggles lay at the feet of Anthony Weaver's coaching as defensive coordinator, and how much of that is just from the complete lack of proven talent in the secondary. Our best corner is Rasul Douglas, a guy that didn't even go to training camp in preseason, for crying out loud. Without him, our starting corners are the rookie in the nickel slot, Storm Duck, who got injured in the first week of play, and Jack Jones, who is getting routinely cooked. Trey says 2-0 in the Flying Fluffy League, baby. Yeah, I'm now 1-1. I'm 1-1, and apparently, because I so resoundingly won my second game, I'm actually in third place in the entire league. Yeah, I'll go over the fantasy real quick. Did Joss ever put out a fantasy football recap video for last week? He didn't he? Yeah, I destroyed Colin, and that was with me leaving Roma Dunze's 31.8 points on the bench. Well, that's what happens. Amon-Ra St. Brown got me 39.2 points. And that was pretty much, but even without him, I still would have won. I ended up winning my fantasy game by just a mite under 50 points. Yeah, one of our corners is Storm Duck. Colin thinks it's more of a personnel issue than a Weaver issue. Very funny, Trey. Colin says, I mean, can't win when Kyle scores 171 points. Make that 174. Like, I mean, I got 39 points from Amon-Ra St. Brown, and my second best performing player on my roster was Brandon Aubrey, who got me 23 points thanks to that absolutely insane game script in the Giants-Cowboys game. And then Zach Ertz gave me 18.4 points. Keenan Allen gave me 17 points. The Seahawks defense gave me 16 points, in part because the Steelers didn't know the new kickoff rules. The only player on my roster who didn't get double digits was Devonta Smith, because apparently the Eagles have forgotten how to pass the ball downfield. Oh, you're playing Jaws this week. Austin. I'm in a points per reception league, and in awards for running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends, it rewards a tenth of a point for every yard. So 64 yards gives you 6.4 points. And for the receivers and tight ends, you get a point per reception. So every time your player catches the ball, it's 1 point plus however many yards your receiver gets. And quarterbacks, the passing yards, you get what was it? Essentially, it was what it works like the old scoring system where you get 1 point for every 10 yards for receivers, running backs, and tight ends, and you get a point every 25 passing yards for quarterbacks. And kicker kicking a 64-yard field goal. Well, in the league my dad runs, 50-plus yard field goals are worth 5 points. I believe. Colin, you play Trey next week. Real Cinema says, I didn't learn until yesterday our linebacker and defensive run game coordinator is Joe Barry. He was that awful Packers defensive coordinator before they got their new guy last year. Yeah, Tom Grossi actually joked about that in the if the NFL was scripted week 2 video where the script writer asks, "Hey, where are the Dolphins, by the way?" And it just shows the Dolphins fan in the Dan Marino jersey walking off the diving board of the swimming pools with the splash into the pool, and then the body floats to the surface, and the Packers fan is like, "Yeah, that's what a Joe Barry defense does to a man." Yeah, maybe we should fire Joe Barry while we're at. Colin says it is what it is, though. Good game, Kyle. Thank you, Colin. I needed that win. I would have won last week too if I had made the correct lineup decisions for all of my wide receivers and tight ends and flex. I would have won that game too. I think I'm very happy I picked up Quentin Johnston off waivers last week. You know, he's touchdown dependent, but he makes a nice handcuff to. I already have Keenan Allen on my roster. And my upper wide receivers include Cedric Tillman, Terry McLaurin, Roma Dunze, and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Devonta Smith. I'm probably going to be dropping Calvin Austin. Is McDaniel still better than Flores? Well, I mean, Flores' defense isn't exactly doing great. Colin says that Texans game was pretty good yesterday. Yeah. If only the Texans actually had an offensive line. Austin says, do you like doing Dolphins videos, Kyle? I like how this is your show. Yeah, it's pretty fun. I just wish that the Dolphins weren't picking now to completely implode. Like, if the Dolphins lose to the Bills and then to the Jets, I would say there is no way that McDaniel and Greer are keeping their jobs after that. And it's hilarious. I ended up with the one Dolphins player who is getting consistently good fantasy production in Devon Achane. And it's not even because of its running. It's because Tua is yet again forced to throw Achane the ball. And Achane has the speeds to make plays on those quick throws. I just wonder what kind of misguided, stubborn ego does Chris Greer have to be carrying to see how terrible the offensive line is every single season and not be able to properly fix it? The Dolphins proved yesterday that we could have a properly functioning offense with just a bit more ability to run, and to a and you take the pressure off of Tua. You take the pressure off of Tua by having the run game get going, and Tua will be able to actually connect with Tyreek on those 30 plus bombs down the field, which he just did. He just did on Sunday. I mean, we have Devon Achane in our backfield, and one of the rookies who looks like one of the biggest steals of the draft in Ollie Gordon, and we're not even reaching 70 rushing yards a game. I know some of it had to do with game script in week 1 where we were already down 20-0 at halftime, but still, where is the actual resolve? Where is the resolve to fix the issues? Real Cinema says Greer did try to fix it, but he made bad choices. We did draft O linemen and brought in new guys. They just either suck or got hurt. Well, having Teron Armstead retiring on us this offseason was a pretty brutal blow to take. Losing that kind of talented, experienced player instantly made the problems worse for the offensive line. But I mean, you can't exactly blame Teron for that. Apparently, he was only being able to play in those final years while taking painkillers all the time. And that's probably a sign that you should hang up the cleats. So, how is Jonah Zavaiena doing? That was our big. Offensive line guy drafted this year. The Dolphins even moved up to specifically draft him. This is interesting. ESPN ranked the top 12 backup quarterbacks, and They have Kirk Cousins ranked at number 1 on this list. So, do the Falcons even have him actively playing at like practice or something? Then they have Jake Browning at number 2, Jackson Dart at number 3. Marcus Mariota should be higher. We've all seen how well he plays in the Commander system. Tanner McKee on the Eagles, Jacoby Brissett's on the Cardinals, Gardner Minshew Chiefs. Is that where he ended up? Tyler Shuck Saints, Anthony Richardson Colts. Having Anthony Richardson ranked higher than Andy Dalton on this list is a war crime. And then they have Carson Wentz at number 11 and Jameis Winston at 12. Jameis Winston should be at number 1 just for how instantly more entertaining the games become when Jameis Winston is played. And honorable mentions, Tyrod Taylor with the Jets, Jimmy Garoppolo with the Rams. Apparently, Dan Marino has been diagnosed with liver disease. He's been diagnosed with metabolic dysfunction associated. How do you pronounce this? Steatohepatitis, or MASH for short. This occurs when excess fats cells accumulate in the liver, which can cause cirrhosis as well as liver cancer. Damn. Oh, I wish all the best for Dan Marino. You know, he's getting older. It's just a fact of life, you know, as you get older, your body will slow down. So, apparently a couple of players, Dolphins players, pushed back on all of the recent calls for McDaniel to be fired. To quote Chop Robinson, per the Miami Herald, at the end of the day, it's not him out there on the field. It's us out there playing the game, making the mistakes on the field and stuff like that. So at the end of the day, it may look bad for him, but it's really on us. We've got to get it better. And by we, you gotta mean Tua, right, Chop? I mean, it's not exactly like it's Chop Robinson or Devon Achane sailing the pass over Tyreek's head for the 12th time. He believes in his players, quotes the offensive tackle Patrick Paul said. He inspires us, Tyrell Dodson says, adding that players must simply execute assignments. Execution I'm in favor of. McDaniel told reporters on Monday that he's not listening to the outside noise, no matter how loud it gets. I think if I worry about my job security, I won't be doing my job. McDaniel said, I won't spend one moment thinking about all the things that whatever people want me to think about. I'm thinking about this team and the Buffalo Bills here after I get done with the podium. Trey says Jameis should be higher because he is the best teammate in the league. Giants have San Jose Sharks vibes because of him. Yeah. Well, Jameis just makes the games instantly more entertaining. Like the amount of high ends, the huge touchdown passes he can throw, and the number of interceptions he also throws. It just makes the games more fun. So Steelers rookie Caleb Johnson probably will not be returning kickoffs in week 3 after his special teams gaffe in Sunday's loss to the Seahawks. Apparently believing the play would be called dead, Johnson allowed the kickoff from Jason Myers to bounce over his head and into the end zone in the fourth quarter. However, according to the NFL's new kickoff rules, any ball that lands between the goal line and the 20-yard line and goes into the end zone must be returned or downed by the receiving team. Otherwise, it's a live ball, which means Seahawks backup George Holani recovered the ball near the back of the end zone for a touchdown. That is hilarious. You literally, one of the most important things about playing football is actually knowing the rules. Trey says, I still hope him being on the Giants parlays into him hosting Saturday Night Live. Yeah. I don't think I've watched any Saturday Night Live in years. So on the week 3 power rankings, ESPN has I'll look at the top 10 here. Buccaneers at number 10. Commanders at number 9. Chiefs at number 8. That's probably a little generous considering the record. Number 7, Chargers. Number 6, Rams. The Lions are at number 5. Ravens are at number 4. Packers are at number 3. The Eagles are at number 2. And the Bills, of course, at number 1. So, do you guys got any early score predictions for this Thursday night abomination we're going to have to watch? So, so yeah, it's been a rough couple of weeks for the Dolphins fans, but good news is that after the Bills trample us on Thursday night, we will have an extended break from Dolphins football. All right, so why don't we take a look at some total team offense and defensive stats? Yeah, the Dolphins have 69 and a half rushing yards per game, which is good for fourth worst in the league. The only teams being worse at rushing the ball being the Steelers, Raiders, and Bengals. And of course, and of course, only the Chicago Bears have surrendered more points per game than the Dolphins. And the Bears had to deal with the 52 burger from the Lions. And the Dolphins right now are tied with the Cleveland Browns for the worst turnover differential in the entire league at -4. 3 interceptions, 1 fumble, and absolutely nothing in terms of takeaways. So the Dolphins are the passing yards per game, or excuse me, the total yards per game. The Dolphins are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They are ninth worst. They have about as effective an offense as the Arizona Cardinals. It's literally tied at 284 and a half total yards per game. So that's the sort of offense we've got. Passing yards per game. The Dolphins are squarely in the middle with 215 passing yards per game. And of course, the Dolphins have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The eighth fewest points per game. The eighth fewest points per game in the league. with just half a point more per game than the New Orleans Saints, a team that's starting Spencer Rattler at quarterback. So, what are your? I think I had already gone over my biggest takeaways from the Dolphins game on Sunday, essentially being that the Dolphins offense woke up, but is once again one dimensional as Tua cannot run the ball at all, and we can't get the run game going, forcing Tua to constantly throw the ball. And the defense, it was 97% of the time when the Patriots had seven plus players dropping back into the passing coverage, because every other team in the league knows by now that all you have to do is take away Tua's first read, make sure that all of his receivers are covered, and watch Tua be unable to do anything with the football other than chucking it away or even throwing an interception. Hello, David. How you doing? David says, I don't understand why we aren't running it when they drop 7. Well, because you can clearly see the results. Let me just show you Devon Achan's stats. This is our leading running back. So in the game against the Patriots, the Devon Achan had 11 rushing attempts for 30 yards, 2.7 yards per rushing attempt. And I wonder if it was any better. It was actually markedly worse than in week 1, where he had 7 carries for 55 yards with almost 8 yards per run. So yeah, the Dolphins aren't running the ball because I have to assume our offensive line is still not great. Just take a look at the stat line. Achan Achan rushed 11 times for 30 yards and brought in 8 of 10 targets for 92 yards and a touchdown in the Dolphins' loss to the Patriots. The Dolphins were already down 12 to nothing at the end of the first quarter, which immediately put Achan in catch-up mode when it came to consistent rushing opportunities. So yeah, the Dolphins defense is also partly to blame because uh through 2 weeks the opponent has had the ball first to start the game, and our defense is so atrocious that the Dolphins keep falling behind by multiple scores before we even have an opportunity to score. And so Achan, who is supposed to be our lead running back, instead is finishing as the Dolphins' leader in both receptions and targets, while finishing second to only Tyreek Hill in receiving yards. Man, I wish he had not stepped out of bounds on what would have been that huge touchdown. Although I don't think our defense could have prevented the Patriots from winning with a minute left in the game. Rob Iman says the O-line is putrid. Fact or fiction? Dolphins release Hill. Well, they wouldn't release Hill, technically. They would be trading him. We're running it for 60 yards a game. Can't win like that. Got to keep pounding the rock right at them until they bring up help. David says David says it's a moot point. We suck. Tear it down. Start fresh. The O-line gets better the more you run as they get to attack instead of defend. David says the entire team sucks. Offense, defense, and special teams. We ran a punt back to take the leads, then give up a kickoff return. Colin says, I mean, it's more of the game flow. More of the game flow of the game that causes the passing attempts. Also doesn't help that if you look at clips from the Colts and Patriots game, there's moments where the offensive line messes up and leaves a defender open. Yeah, especially in the Colts game where there was literally no one blocking for the one Colts defender who was able to just run right past everybody and sack Tua. David says, do we got any picks? Predictions? I'd say Bills 55, Fins 20. That's sounding about right, David. Rob says, I think Hill nets a day 3 pick based on his baggage. What are you talking like? Isn't that like 5th, 6th, or 7th round pick? I think Tyreek might. I think Tyreek might net us more than that. The Dolphins might be able to trade for a player if they part ways with Tyreek. So it'd either be like a player and a low round pick, or I'm thinking Tyreek Tyreek Hill, that amount of talent, even with the baggage, should at least be worth a third or fourth rounder. I mean, the situation couldn't be more obvious in South Florida that Tyreek Hill high is a receiver with a lot of high-end talent and a lot of baggage, who is stuck on a quarterback right now. He is stuck with a quarterback that keeps sailing the football 10 feet over his head. Yeah, Dan Marino got diagnosed with liver disease, so he can't come back. Do, 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 do. Should be funny. So for the Madden ratings have already started updating. Tua has been downgraded to a 78 overall, a, a loss of 4. Chop Robinson is downgraded by 1 to 76 overall, and Patrick Paul has been upgraded by 2 to a 74 overall. Of course, this, I don't know how seriously anybody takes Madden anymore. Rob says 45 to 10 Bills as my lock this week. Yeah. I would be surprised if the Dolphins were within 2 scores, Bills, let alone actually once within 1 score or even winning the game. I wonder if Darren Waller will actually ever take the field for the Dolphins. Why did we trade actual assets for a dude who had been retired for a year and clearly has been taking his sweet, sweet time to get back to football shape? Like, I don't know what exactly the Dolphins' purpose, if the Dolphins even have a purpose for tight ends right now. I don't think Julian Hill or Tanner Connor were targeted even once. Julian Hill was wide open on the Tua play that where he threw that costly interception. David says, wow, Bills only favored by 11.5. Well, that sounds about right. Yeah, let me see the odds. Yeah, favored. Bills are favored by 11.5. And the over on this game is apparently 49.5. I'd expect most of that scoring is going to be done by the Bills. ESPN Analytics gives the Bills a 75% chance to win the game. That's a little low, don't you think? see. David says, all that said, if by some miracle we show up and beat Buffalo, I will lose my shit. If the Dolphins somehow found a way to beat the Bills, it might backfire, because that would mean that Greer and McDaniel's jobs would be absolutely saved. It also would make no damn sense. In what sane universe would the Dolphins get blown out by Daniel Jones and the Colts, lose a close game against the Patriots in South Florida, where we've historically beaten the crap out of the Patriots, only for us to actually somehow beat the Bills? I think Bills fans would be completely justified in having a full-blown temper tantrum meltdown if that were to happen. So, Colin says it was minus 12.5 last time I checked for the Bills game. Like, I mean, we can at least indulge the highly unrealistic scenario in which the Dolphins somehow beat both the Bills and the Jets in the upcoming 2 weeks. You know, at least have a little bit of fun in fantasy land. That would put us at 2-2. That would put us at 2-2 with a 2-1 record against the divisional opponents and potential tie-breaking wins against the Jets and Bills. And that would be just enough to probably give the vote of confidence back to McDaniel and Greer internally within the organization. But I mean, at this rate, I don't know if the Dolphins are even going to beat the Jets, let alone the Bills. Rob says the only way Miami wins if it's Josh Allen gets hurt, and yeah, it's I would not want to win in that fashion, because that would be the worst case scenario where it would be obvious that the Dolphins only won because of a Josh Allen injury, and it gives McDaniel and Greer some semblance of job security. Johnny says the funniest loss of the week is the Steelers. Do they deserve the L, Kyle? The first bet that went wrong for us was the Steelers. The funniest loss of the week. Okay. Funniest loss of the week depends on what kind of sadistic streak you have. If blowing a game where your quarterback threw for 450 plus yards and 3 touchdowns in overtime because he threw a costly interception, and then Brandon Aubrey is remains automatic. That's how the Giants lost to the Cowboys. Or if you prefer getting your supposedly top tier defense humiliated by Daniel Jones and the Colts, believing that you have won the game when Spencer Schrader misses the 60-yarder field goal, only for the refs to call a leverage penalty on the Broncos and move the kick to the 45-yard attempt, and then Schrader nails it. It was the Broncos, Patelron, who lost to the Colts because of leverage. Yeah, Brandon Perna's face. I watched that too. He literally someone turned it into the meme from The Simpsons. Watch this, Lisa. You can pinpoint the exact second that his heart breaks in half. And now. Rob says the Texans lost in a stupid way last night. Well, from what I recall, they lost because they surrendered the huge drive to Baker Mayfield, right? Yeah, I'm sure Scooter was happy. Rob says, I do think the Jets will be a win. I mean, Justin Fields, the Jets looked completely cooked against the Bills, but they also dropped 32 points on the Steelers defense. And right now, Steelers and Dolphins defense is looking just about the same tier. The Dolphins, it's like divergent convergence, right? The Steelers have all the high-end talent, but it's 10 years past their prime. The Dolphins have next to no talent to speak of. Yeah, 2 years ago today, we destroyed the Broncos by a score of 70. 70-20 happened 2 seasons ago. And I wish that the Dolphins, didn't have to fall back to the ground so fast after that win against the Broncos. It was so beautiful watching Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane run for how many touchdowns did they get? Didn't they get 3 apiece? Is Minka past his prime? Asked Patelron. Arguably, yeah. He hasn't really done anything for the Steelers in the past couple of seasons, which might have been one of the reasons why they were willing to part with him to get Jalen Ramsey. Rob says clock management was bad on D'Amico Ryans, which led to the Baker Mayfield touchdown. It can't possibly be as bad as Pete Carroll apparently down by 14 and leading an 11-minute drive just to settle for the field goal against the Chargers. That has got to be one of the most hilarious, incompetent uses of 11 minutes I could ever think of. Johnny says, are the Detroit Rams still a thing? You remember a few years ago when Detroit was more happy than LA in winning the Lombardi thanks to Matthew Stafford. Well, the Rams and Chargers, the LA really does not have the most loyal or passionate football fan base. Both the MLB and the NFL have been guilty. Really, it's MLB, NFL, and the MLB, NFL, and NBA have all been guilty of having multiple teams in LA or marketing to LA when that city is so chock full of teams and they only care about the ones that actually win. Like, the LA fans only really care about the Dodgers, the Lakers, and maybe the LA Kings, right? I mean, the Rams won the Super Bowl, and they still have to share the SoFi Stadium with the Chargers. And both fan bases routinely see their home games getting invaded by swarms of opponents' fans. G. Lowe says the Golden State Warriors are more popular than the LA Clippers. G. Lowe says Angels fan base doesn't exist when the Angels and Dodgers meet up in Anaheim. Well, the Angels should still be the Anaheim Angels. I mean, the Anaheim Ducks still proudly represents the city of Anaheim. Rams and Chargers share because they have to. And Stan Kroenke is really not that great of a human being, much less an NFL owner. But one of the things you can point to and say that Stan Kroenke did right was he actually paid for the whole construction of SoFi Stadium. And SoFi Stadium is one of the most impressive state-of-the-art stadiums in all of sports, let alone the NFL. Remember San Diego and then the New Jersey Giants and Jets. So Josh Allen will probably be wearing a clear visor on his helmet to help protect his nose during the Thursday night football game against the Dolphins. He suffered a bloody first quarter of the team's 30-10 victory over the Jets. So his nose was bruised, apparently. Maybe the visor will be bad luck. I'm grasping at straws here. The Bills crushed the Jets, and they had that insane comeback win against a supposed Super Bowl contender in the Ravens. In no sane world do the Bills leave that Orchard Park, the Highmark Stadium, without the victory. Would I say more Dolphins fans exist in Tampa or more Buccaneers fans in Miami? There are probably... I wouldn't know the logistics. I guess maybe because Miami is just the bigger city. There probably are more Buccaneers fans in Miami than there are Dolphins fans in Tampa. I mean, a lot of the Dolphins fans a lot of the Dolphins fans are going to be centered around South Florida, Fort Lauderdale, and then the further north and west you go, the Buccaneers have that solid control over Western Florida, and up along the Space Coast, is largely Dolphins territory, but the Jaguars do encroach on it. Johnny says, I saw a lot of Dolphins in Tampa once, but yeah, Buccaneers recently was more popular for Tom Brady. In the 90s, Dolphins was popular. What fascinates me more is the mix of fans that you'll find here on the eastern shore of Maryland. So the eastern shore of Maryland is essentially its own entity separated from the rest of Maryland, and is also pretty much attached to the hip to Pennsylvania and Delaware and New Jersey. Around here, most of the people I see, there are definitely a bunch of Ravens fans, and there's also Eagles fans. Those are the big two. And then every once in a while, you see a Commanders fan, or even a team like the Bills. But yeah, it's Ravens and Eagles around here. I think one of the ladies who works at our local post office is an Eagles fan. Johnny says in the NFC North, Packers and Lions fans are everywhere in Minnesota and Chicago. Yeah. And the thing is that Dolphins fans seem to be one of the most prevalent fan bases that you can find spread out throughout the entire country. Like, pretty much everywhere you travel, there are plenty of Dolphins fans that you'll find, say, in New York, or perhaps you find them out in California or the Midwest. Gilo says, why do 49ers fans, when I ask them, have zero love for the Cowboys? Because of the 90s. Cowboys 49ers is like one of the biggest rivalries in that conference, especially during the 80s and the 90s. Again, so that's weird. Where did all the comments go? Oh. Hello, Dolphins fan 1979. Yeah, the Oakland Raiders. Oakland just lost pretty much all of their sports teams for circumstances both in and out of their control. The 70s Dolphins and Raiders fans have no love. The older generation Dolphins fans see the Steelers as bitter conference rivals. Yeah, the Dolphins Steelers rivalry was a significant era. Well, I'd say the biggest modern day rivalries that the Dolphins have, there obviously is the rivalry against the Bills. There's the rivalry against the Bills. And, there will always be the rivalries against the Patriots and the Jets. I'd have to stop and consider for a moment what our biggest rivalries are outside of the division. Like, I think the Tua versus Herbert debate has always made Dolphins Chargers games extra charged, pun intended. I have personally no love really for the Baltimore Ravens, especially considering that they aren't even going to give us the courtesy of beating the Bills for us. Gilo says for conferences, Colts and Jaguars. And then, we also have another in-state rivalry with the Buccaneers. Johnny says, yes, Dolphins Chargers is one of them. Dolphins fan says, when I was a kid, it was Marino versus Jim Kelly, and the Bills had our number then. Yeah. I just wonder how NFL history would have changed if the Dolphins had even succeeded once in that stretch in the early 90s of actually beating the Bills. Because the Bills were very busy losing 4 straight Super Bowls. And even today, the questions still linger because now the Bills' boogeyman is the Chiefs. Johnny says, I, as a Dolphins fan, see the Chiefs as an ancestral generational rival since the longest game. And then recently, well, yeah, the Chiefs, that playoff game, the infamous playoff game in the Colts that we've recently had against the Chiefs. And also, was it the game in Munich? I know we played the Chiefs I think we played the Chiefs in Germany and also lost that game. G. Lowe says Chiefs will always have something in our hearts. Remember, if people say Chiefs-Bills rivalry is intense, it was thanks to us Dolphins let it happen. 2023 divisional round was made possible thanks to us losing to them in the wild card. And then the 2024 season was thanks to us. Yeah. All right, I'm going to go ahead and sign off now. Thank you for joining me on this fine Tuesday afternoon. I'm not quite sure if I'll be doing this again tomorrow. I think I might be. But at any rate, at any rate, Dad and I will be streaming Dolphins getting trampled by Bills on television on Thursday night. So yeah, you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care. Thank you for joining me.